Construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the house down twice a week, every Monday and Thursday. You can catch us wherever you listen to podcasts. You notice if you're on video, I look a little bit different here. I'm sitting down. You can see the screen behind me. I need to put a picture up over here. Maybe we need to do a poll on what I should hang on my wall. But I'm super excited today. We have another great guest. As always, I like to say you guys don't tune in for Ron Nussbaum. You turn in for the value that our guests bring to you every day. And today's going to be no different. Scott, it is great to have you here today.
Hey, Ron, thanks for having me. I have my fire-resistant suit on so that when we're burning that house down, I'll be okay.
Awesome, man. I love it. And to get started, why don't you tell all the construction champions out there a little bit about yourself and what got you here to today?
Yeah, man, I'm a lawyer, been practicing law 27 years. I consider myself to be a legal coach. I work with small business owners, especially in service-based businesses, and do a lot of construction stuff. Where we coach them in how to have what I call shatterproof businesses. And that's a business that will bend and not break. And I've been doing it by a subscription model for the last 12 years.
Awesome, man. It's not every day that we get to have a lawyer on Construction Champions. So I am excited for the conversation today. I'm excited for the value that's going to be brought to the construction industry. So let's dive right in there. I'm going to ask the $1 million question. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
Yeah, a construction champion has not only built a business that builds a good product. You got to have a great product, but it's built in a way that it can survive the storms of the finances, of recessions, of lawsuits, of all these things. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when these things are going to happen. And have you built a business that can withstand those? If you have, then you're a construction champion.
Absolutely, man. And, we know the storms are coming, and it's being able to be prepared for them. And I'm excited to dive into this with you because you look at it from a different perspective than I think most of our guests have when we start talking about preparing for those storms. What does that look like? Because a lot of people have just been there. They've been through it. I think you probably have a more proactive way for us to look at it as an industry. So when you talk about preparing for those storms, what are some of those storms that you see that guys in the construction industry just are not prepared for?
The biggest storm, it's litigation. Litigation is the biggest problem that we have in the construction industry. And it's not that you can avoid it, really. It's just going to happen. You're going to run into a client that you can't make happy. It's just going to happen. There's going to be a job go bad, and it wasn't your fault. Somebody down the line did something wrong, and you get drug into it, right? It's just a part of the construction life. And so what we have to do is be proactive, like you said, and be ready for that. And there's some tactics and strategies that you can do that I've seen firsthand. If you don't do them, what happens? And if you do them, what happens during the litigation?
Yeah, I completely agree with you when you talk about litigation and law. Like, it's going to happen. I remember the first time I was ever in court. I remember it's part of when you're doing high volumes of business and you're working on people's homes. It's just a matter of time before you're going to end up in these situations. And
Yep.
where I remember sitting in court with a judge making a ruling. I'm like, I want to do the work, but they didn't want us to do the work. And they're
Yep.
like, and the judge is like, I have to roll with them because they don't want you to do the work anymore. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because they told me on the way in here or last week, they wanted us to do the work if we were willing to do the work. And it can really be messy. So I'd love for you to break that down for all the champions out there that are listening, that are looking to get their shit together when it comes
Yeah.
to preparing for this.
Yeah. And let's just kind of focus on two things that I think are really important that they can do for this. Kind of framework for it is, we're talking about fire and burning houses down. Don't be the construction guy or gal that only calls your lawyer when the house is on fire. Okay. Call them before you light that fire. Let's talk about strategies and things beforehand. All right. So here's two things that you need to always be thinking. Stay in your lane. Figure out what you do with your construction business, and you don't move out of that. So if you're a residential construction company, do residential. If you're a single family person, don't start building apartments. If you're commercial, don't just jump off and do a residential. I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but if you're going to, you would have a plan. So you do a business plan, you'd have the right funding, you'd have the right insurance, you'd have the right contracts, you'd have all the things set up. Now we go into that business, not someone brings you a deal and you're like, oh, there's some money that could be made there. It's kind of close to what I do. You still use hammers and saws and drills. I'm going to go over here. As soon as you do that, you're going to get smacked. It's like you're driving down the highway and you suddenly change lanes without signaling or looking. What happens? You get smacked. It happens every time, and it will happen in construction business. So don't do that. Stay in your lane. Number two, and this is a little more complicated, you've got to use a siloing approach to your business. So if you are doing residential and commercial, have two different businesses that are doing it. Don't do them in the same LLC. Have two. They could be managed by one LLC, but have those two things in separate LLCs. And then here's the third part of that is if you own a shop in heavy equipment and things, don't have them owned by any of your operating businesses. Have them owned by a separate company that leases or rents them to your operating businesses. Here's why. 4 years ago, client comes in. He's in the building business and has a client come to him with a job that he wants built. It's a little different than he did before because usually he would do design built, and this time the guy's brought him the plans and wants him to build it just like this, and it's kind of really an interesting project. And he's like, that's close enough to what I do. And I see some money there. He takes it. I mean, by the first day after they sign the contract, changes start coming, and changes keep coming, and the customer's never happy with it. And you end up, when you get into the design specs, it's not really buildable the way he wanted it. It's not going to work. But because he hadn't designed it himself, he let the customer do it. You build this thing that's a monstrosity that won't hold itself up. So you end up with a really bad deal because you had got it out of your lane, and then you get sued. If you've got your business owning your real estate, then your real estate and your business are now tied up in this lawsuit. And that one happened kind of during the COVID stuff. So it was it was like 3, almost 4 years that they're tied up in litigation. Because they had a separate company that had their real estate, it wasn't affected by this ongoing lawsuit. They could refinance it, they could sell it, and it wasn't an asset that the plaintiff could ever get to. So the risk in the lawsuit shrunk to all that they were at risk is their operating business. That was just cash flow, right? You can set up another business to do cash flow, but the hard assets are hard to be replaced. And so you have to have some complexity to your business structure. Simplicity does not work in the game of asset protection. The more simple it is, the faster it can be attacked. And for years, I did plaintiffs work where we're suing people. The first thing you do if someone brings you a lawsuit and says, I've been injured. Let's say someone comes in and says, hey, my wife was in a car accident and was paralyzed. I want to sue. Okay, that's a good case. You start looking for insurance. Is there insurance that's sufficient to cover these damages? Second place they look, they hire a private investigator to do an asset search, and they get this report that has all the assets that this person owns. And so you don't want it to be simple. You want it to be complicated. You want to have it in layers, and you want to have anonymity if possible, so it's not all tied to your name if you create that liability event. So complexity is king when you're doing asset protection, not simplicity, and stay in your lane. If you'll do those two things, in my book, you'll be shatterproof, and in Ron's book, you'll be a construction champion.
Absolutely. And I love the staying in your lane. I mean, that should just be inherent to anybody. Everybody listening, you've heard me on here say it enough times, like just do what you do and do it really good. Don't worry about all the other stuff. And when you start talking about the assets and stuff, man, that's something I haven't thought about in probably a decade when that originally all started coming about, where you start talking about uh getting assets and stuff and leasing them back to yourself. So there's all kinds of different benefits, but from a logistic perspective, it's I guess I ask the champions out there, if one of you guys ran a red light and hit somebody, what would that look like from a business perspective? And it's not like it's this conversation people want to have, but this is life. And as business owners, it's your responsibility to have these conversations with yourself, with the lawyer, with the people that you need to have these conversations, because you're not out there driving that truck. Something happens, you're liable though. That guy's clocked in, it's a work truck. Like, you got to make sure that you have protections, not just for you, but for your business, your family, the families of the people that work for you. There's a lot of moving pieces, especially the bigger you get. And that's what Scott's talking about having here, is having the ability to protect yourself in these situations when real life stuff happens.
Yeah, because if you call the lawyer after this real life stuff happens, then all that can happen is damage control. And so, maybe the lawsuit's winnable years down the road, but you're going to spend lots in attorney's fees getting there. Maybe we can shrink how much it's going to cost you if you lose, but that's too late. You have to do the planning before the claim arises. Otherwise, you're doing what's called fraudulent transfers and hiding assets, and that's the go to jail stuff. We don't want to do the go to jail stuff. Number one rule is stay alive. Number two rule is stay out of jail. Right? Those are, you can't break those rules.
Why do you think that people have such a hard time having proactive conversations with lawyers when it really it makes sense to do it?
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, I know why. Because I lived it, right? I've had this firm, this is 19 years. And up until 2012, I was just like every other lawyer. I had an hourly rate. You would sign a contract with me. You give me about $5,000 and I'd bill against that till it was gone. Then I'd say, hey, give me more. And I'd keep billing. I was in control of how much I made because how much time I spent, that's how much I made. And clients very quickly understand that if they call you and they get billed $58 for that 6 minute call, that's not fun. And so they don't call anymore. And so we built this system to where we're at this conflict because I have all the information you need to make good decisions, but I only give it to you if you're going to let me bill you by the hour. So it creates this disincentive to call. So everyone Googles it, flips a coin, dials a friend, anything but call their lawyer because they have this feeling of money flying out of their pocketbook. So when I finally realized that was what was wrong, and it caused a problem for me where I was getting repeat business, and it wasn't the good kind because they kept making these dumb mistakes. It's like, have someone look at the contract before you sign it. Have someone write a contract for you. It's stuff like that that's getting people in trouble. And so I hired my first business coach in 2012 and said, hey, I have a vision for an on-demand system where small business owners, service-based professionals can call and ask any dumb question they want to ask, and it doesn't cost them any more money. Because if anyone tells you there aren't dumb questions, they haven't done my job long enough. There are plenty of dumb questions. It's just that you shouldn't get charged for asking them because you might run in. It might be a good question, and you don't know. And so you need to be able to ask those questions. And so they helped me build the Access membership plan, which now our clients can email us questions, text us questions, call them in and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Does this make sense? Are there any problems? And we can help them then be proactive. And then we're having these monthly check-in calls so they can be proactive. But that's the reason they don't, is because the billing system is screwed up and lawyers are creating this disincentive to actually use them until the house is on fire. And then the lawyers get to make a bunch of money because the problem already has been created.
Well, I mean, I think I have a lawyer in one of my top fives that every business should have.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's something I believe. I bought a business before, and the first thing asked was, I asked this business broker, who's the best lawyer to do a purchase transaction in the area I was in. And he's like, wow, this guy's the best, but he's going to be the most expensive. And I said, well, I've never done this before. I want the best. And I got on a call with him and he's like, it's going to be this much. It ended up being double that. But I'll tell you what, he saved me probably double that amount of money. And the lessons I learned going down the road, now I know stuff like there's stuff I wasn't even paying attention to that I should have been paying attention to, but since I
Yeah.
was willing to go out and seek counsel, it completely changed the transaction more in my benefit because I went out and got the best around. And I
Yeah.
think people avoid that because they're in my mind, the ego can come in. Like we feel like we should know this kind of stuff, but we shouldn't. Like, how long did you spend in law school to become like this is not
Yeah.
stuff we just know. Like, and we have to
Yeah.
be
No.
honest with ourselves.
Yeah. And like, I don't drill my own teeth. I don't do my own surgery. There's just things that I don't know how to do. I could probably figure it out with the internet and YouTube, but it doesn't make sense for me to do it. And so you've got to get these, what I call key professional relationships. And those are relationships that are covered in chapter 1 of the book. But if you set up these key relationships, the lawyer's one of them, accountant, uh, insurance broker, business coach, and banker, if you get these key relationships established, they can help you miss out on a bunch of the potholes that are in this business world. And they can be working behind the scenes to help make your life better while you're out building stuff. But you've got to take the time and invest your time to set up those key relationships. And sometimes you have to invest money, but having the right information at the right time is often the difference between success and failure. So get the right information, even if you have to invest in it, and don't look at it as an expense. It's an investment. It's an investment in yourself because you'll get smarter by hanging out with smarter people, and smarter people are people that know stuff you don't. It doesn't mean they have the more, inane intelligence. It's just they just know stuff you don't. So get around those people, get that
Mhm.
information, get access to it. And if you do that, man, it goes a long way.
Yeah, it sounds like we got a pretty similar core group of what every business. I mean, pretty basic stuff. You want to surround yourself with the people that can make your life easier. Most of the time, it's not going to be free. And I think
No.
that's a misconception. Like, even when you're starting stuff up, like there's expense to this stuff. I've never done anything really that was free that I thought was pretty amazing. Every so often I'll stumble, especially with AI now, every so often you
Yeah.
stumble onto something and you do it and you're like, well, that was pretty amazing for free. Like, but for the most part, any service, I mean, guys, look at yourself. Like if you went to
I was
somebody's
thinking,
house, are you giving away free quotes or are you not giving away free quotes? What does that look like? What does the competition do? What do you do? Like there's this whole environment with what you do. So you have to be willing to pay people to do their job or else they don't have a business. Like I typically don't want to do business with people that are giving away their services for free because they're not going to be a long run. They're not going to be around long.
no, and I've found you don't tend to get people's best stuff if you're not paying for it.
Hmm.
Even if they have the best intentions, there's just something subconsciously that you just don't get their best stuff. And in fact, if friends ask me to do legal work for them, I'm like, here's the deal: you can either pay the price, like everyone else, or it's free. And if it's free, just understand you're not going to get the best. We're going to get to you when we get to you, and that's okay because you didn't pay me anything.
I love that. I absolutely love that because that's just you're presenting honesty to begin with. Like this is what it is. Like if you want the service that I provide at the level I provide it, you're gonna have to pay me for it. And if not, that's fine, but you're not going to get that service and that turnaround. Like I love that, man. That's really good.
Cool. Yeah, and that's what we do here at Reeb Law is that we work with small business owners and help them avoid these problems, teach them these things. I can only do so many calls a day, right? And so, so we have our podcast, the Shatterproof Entrepreneur. I come on podcasts like this, and then I'm on stages, and then we've got the book, The Shatterproof Entrepreneur, that you can get on Amazon. It just walks you through how to build a shatterproof business, become a construction champion. It's step by step. Here's the phases you go through. Don't skip any steps. Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited, kind of started me on my entrepreneurial journey, where I kind of turned from lawyer professional to business owner. And he talks about, most of us have these entrepreneurial seizures, and then we start these businesses. And when you do that, you skip steps. You just do. And so take the time, take a pause, go back, and now let's fix this stuff that you've skipped over before it's too late. Something like 120 million lawsuits are filed every year in the US. So it's like we said, when's it going to happen to you? And are you ready? Because like 65% of those are business related. They're all about contract disputes. And if you're building anything, you better have contracts. So you're part of that statistic. So just get ready.
Amen to that. Like if you're doing work on a handshake still these days, I love that that's what you want to do, but it's not the time to be doing it that way. That's just
No.
not. It's one of the first ways to get yourself in trouble. That you shouldn't be swinging a hammer or doing anything until there's some kind of formal agreement that's signed by all parties and some money has changed hands. That's
Yeah.
just my professional opinion. I know Scott, he's the lawyer here. He might advise differently, but that's how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
Yeah, no sole proprietorships, no handshake deals. Everything has to be written. There's a rule that kind of comes from medicine, but if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. So you've got to have it written down. And we mentioned doing business with friends. It kind of ends up, a lot of us end up doing things with the people we know. And if those relationships are valuable to them, then you need to make sure you have clear written documentation of what's happening, because that's how you maintain a relationship. If you have a handshake deal where you've just had a discussion and then you start to work and suddenly there's a disagreement on the scope, someone's getting called a liar, and it's hard to recover from that. But if you go back and say, hey, let's go look at the document, I think we've gotten off base. Let's go back and look at what we agreed to. Then you can refresh your memory together. Totally different story. Oh, you're right, Bob. That is what it said.
Awesome, man. I love it. So for everybody out there that's listening, if they wanted to connect with you, follow you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, get the book at the Shatterproof Entrepreneur. The podcast is great, but come to the website, reiblaw.com, REIBLAW.com /construction champions. And on that page, we'll have a special offer for just you guys where you can download a special ebook that will help you get started shatterproofing your business. And then there's a way for you to get on my calendar for a 20-minute laser legal coaching session where you can tell me what your business is, how you run it, how you set it up. I'll give you my unvarnished opinion on where you've screwed up and where you've got it right. And then you can either use us to fix it or you can go somewhere else and fix it, but you'll know where you stand.
Awesome, man. I love it. And thank you for taking the time to be on the show today.
I mean, it's been a blast, and I'm glad that my coat held up to the house being burned down.
Awesome. I am glad it did as well. So, Construction Champions, look at that. A free resource, 20 minutes to be able to go and learn a little bit about where your business might be good, where it might be bad, what's the differences and stuff that should be evaluated. That's what I love. It's just bringing resources, bringing value to the construction industry. We all know the more work you do, the more chances you have to get into sticky situations, to say the least, or family disputes, and everything goes sideways, and having stuff positioned so it doesn't completely destroy everything you worked for. We all know,
Right.
we've all heard the stories. It's happened so many times where something happened and it completely destroyed somebody's life because they didn't have this everything set up how it should have been to protect them. There's legal ways to do that. It's why all of this was created. So you could protect yourself, protect your assets. You got to take advantage of it. Jump on a call with Scott for 20 minutes and figure out what's going on. Who knows? You might get on there and be like, well, I am a damn champion. I have everything set up right. But I'm just probably going to guess that there's at least a few different things that need to be cleaned up, because that's just how every business is. We get busy, and then next thing you know, it doesn't get taken care of, and it becomes this risk that's just sitting there that at some point in time is going to become a net income in your business. So Construction Champions, make sure you go check out the website, check out our blog, and be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, Construction Champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.